Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us right now via Skype is Brad Meltzer, New York Times bestselling author and host of Brad Meltzer's Decoded on the History Channel. He's here today to talk to us about his two new children's books, I should say. I Am Amelia Earhart and I Am Abraham Lincoln. Brad, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so tell us why you decided to write children's books.
You know, for me, I was just tired of my own children looking at reality TV show stars and loudmouth athletes and thinking that that's a hero. I tell my kids all the time, that is fame. And being famous is very different than being a hero. And because of the show we do, because of the books I write and the thrillers I write, they always have kind of historical backgrounds. I said I have so many better heroes for them. Rosa Parks, Amelia Earhart, and of course Abraham Lincoln. I'm going to write a line of children's books illustrated for them that doesn't just tell the story of when they were famous, but also shows you when they were young. So you see Abraham Lincoln when he's a little boy. And the result really is you see the power and the potential that's in all of us.
And of course this, what you talked about right there is very relevant. A certain childhood actor or musician was just recently arrested. And as parents, we're constantly dealing with this peer pressure of what's popular, who's famous and who's not. And can you kind of tell us, how you approach this when you're talking to your kids, and give us a little bit more detail about this whole thing, fame versus heroism, and how you talk to your kids and tell them that not everybody can be a princess and not everybody can be Superman.
Yeah, no, and listen, to me, the most important part of Superman isn't Superman. The most important part of Superman is Clark Kent. And you want to know why? Because we're all Clark Kent. We all know what it's like to be boring and ordinary and wish we could do something incredibly beyond ourselves. And so when I talk to my kids, I don't want to put these heroes up on a pedestal. They're amazing people, but the reminder is to show them the human side of it. So, for instance, Abraham Lincoln, I can tell my kids that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves and was president, a vital piece of information. But when I tell my kids, and this is a true story that's in I Am Abraham Lincoln, that Abraham Lincoln, when he was 10 years old, came upon a group of boys playing with turtles. And he loved animals when he was little, so he races over to the boys, and he sees that they're not playing with the turtles. What these bullies are doing is they're putting hot coals on the tops of the turtles. They're torturing them to make them run faster. And little Abraham Lincoln, at 10 years old at that moment, sees this injustice. When you're 10 years old, or when you're 40 years old, sometimes it's hard to do the right thing, but someone has to. And he stands up to the bullies in that moment, makes them take the coal off the turtle, saves the turtles. And when I tell that story and we share I Am Abraham Lincoln with my son, now my son goes, Dad, he loves animals just like me. I want to be like him. And I love the idea that my son looks up to Abraham Lincoln for something that he's capable of. And Abraham Lincoln's spirit is really alive for him. That's the goal of these books.
Yeah, certainly something there that kids can connect with. And another little thing that I like that you included in the book is how Abraham Lincoln used to like to read with his feet up in the air, kind of leaning up against a tree. And I just kind of can picture a lot of kids reading this book and then copying that same behavior. And that I'm sure would be a huge thrill for you to see kids in Central Park or any other major parks with their feet up in the air, kind of reading a tree like Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, listen, I can tell my daughter that she should love Amelia Earhart because she flew across the Atlantic Ocean. But my daughter says, Dad, doesn't everyone fly across the Atlantic Ocean these days? But if I tell her, as we do, there's a real story in the book, that when Amelia Earhart was 7 years old, she built a homemade roller coaster in her backyard. That she took a wooden crate, she put roller skating wheels on the bottom, she shoved it all the way up to the roof of her tool shed. And then she gets on the roof, she gets in the crate, goes driving down the roof, down the two wooden planks that are there, hits the ground, flies through the air, lands and says something like, that was incredible. Now to my daughter, Amelia Earhart is brave and she's daring, and most of all, she's fun. The only bad news, of course, is when my wife told me that my daughter was now on the roof.
Yeah, there's a fine line there from what you want your kids to emulate and what you want them to not do, of course. And of course, when you read these books with your kids, and any parent knows this, and this is kind of a question parent to parent, there's things that are in the book and things you talk about that, conversations that are started because of the book. In the I Am Abe Lincoln book, you talk about slaves, and there's a cartoon image of some slaves chained together. And at what age do you think kids are ready to have that kind of discussion and fully understand what something like slavery means?
It's interesting. We had the debate, what do we put in the book? I read this book. I wrote it for my 8-year-old and my 5-year-old. My 12-year-old loves it. But the books have been out just a couple of days. I've already gotten letters from people who are reading them with their 2-year-old and their 4-year-old. And you know what? Kids ask questions kids are far smarter and far more resilient than we realize. So and it's an amazing conversation when you see your kids say, "Oh, what's that, Dad? What's that, Mom?" And you explain to them, and there it is. And you see Abraham Lincoln reacting in that moment. And the first moment that Abraham Lincoln sees slaves, he sees them, as you said, chained in this boat. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't do the right thing in that moment. And he always regrets it. He always looks back and thinks of those people. And then Abraham Lincoln, again, is a human. He's not this up on this pedestal and someone we can't understand. And to me, that's the point of the books, is to have these conversations. I think my favorite review came from a little girl whose mother said to me, they said, "What's your favorite part of the book?" And they said, "When Amelia Earhart tells us that no one can stop you from having my dream." And then she stops, she goes, and then she goes, "I wish I were her." And man, that's the best review I'll ever get.
Yeah, I know. With the, kind of on the flip side of the last question I just talked about, with the Amelia Earhart book, nobody knows exactly what happened to her and her navigator, but most people believe that they died somewhere over the Pacific. In that particular book, you end it with a ticker tape parade for Amelia Earhart. So this kind of tells parents that we have to pick our spots, when we tell these stories to kids, what to include and what not to include, right?
That's right. I mean, listen, I can include and say, they both met horrible ends. But if I do that, I feel like I personally, again, this is just me dealing with my 5-year-old and my 8-year-old. My son, I know, will just keep going, what happened to her, what happened to her, what happened to her. He's not going to care about anything else but her death. And so we just decided, you know what, we're not going to show those bloody ends. This is a book about their accomplishments and who they are as people, not what happened to them in the end. And then when your kids get older, you know what, they're going to love that character. They're going to love Amelia Earhart, and they're going to want to know more about her, and more power. God bless to you.
Yeah, it's good because, parents need to decide for themselves what they need to include. And I think you did a good thing there where it leaves it up to the parents on, if kids do ask the questions, of course, the parents want to answer it. If not, maybe it's not the right time. But they're great books, Brad, and I look forward to reading them to my daughter. Congratulations, and we hope to have you back soon.
I appreciate it. I more appreciate you guys have been helpful to me. We went, my first interview with you was when we went on our USO tour. They pick a couple writers every year to go, and 6 writers every year to go and entertain the troops. And I came back from there, did an interview with you, and your support of that and the other books I get to do are why I get to live this dream. So thank you very much.
Well, it's our pleasure, and I know you're right down the road in Miami. We'll have to get face-to-face sometime.
You got it.
All right, Brad, take care.
You too.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.